Welcome back to Faith in Question. Today we're diving into contradictions in the Bible, but not the ones you've heard 100 times. These are the ones that Christians are afraid you'll bring up because they don't have a strong way to explain them away. And trust me, by the time we get to number 5, you might start questioning everything you thought you knew.
Okay, no. But I need to explain a bit more because this guy, and look, I don't want to say anything bad about him because, well, it's just rude. But he says that there is contradictions that cracked his faith. Now, he does want to go on. I'll just let him just do this next bit.
But before we get there, let me ask you, if the Bible is the perfect, inerrant Word of God, why do these contradictions exist?
And that's a very good question because I have been researching 439 supposed contradictions that I have been delving into. And every single one of them, I go, actually, that's not a contradiction. So I don't know why he's going through these and it's cracked his faith because they're so simple to solve. Well, I think they're so easily solved. Maybe you can tell me otherwise. My name is Craig and this is Morningstar Quest, where we are delving into the Bible one question at a time. All right, so let's get in to, hopefully this will be the first one.
Well, stick around because this might get a little bit uncomfortable.
No,
Let's
not
get
really.
right into it.
Actually, I find it more of like a Bible study, to be quite honest. So,
Contradiction number 1.
Anyway.
Who told David to number Israel? Here's a strange one. If you know your Old Testament, you've probably read the story of David taking a census of Israel. But here's the question. Who actually told him to do it? 2 Samuel 24 and verse 1 says, "And again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, 'Go, number Israel and Judah.'" So it was God. Well, not so fast, because 1 Chronicles 21 verse 1 tells a completely different story. It says, "And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel."
actually, this is an easy one. And if you read Job, it kind of gives you the same picture. So the Bible just gives you this picture over and over again. And in Job, Satan is the one doing the afflicting to Job. However, God allows permission for him to thwart Job. This is the same thing. So the thing is here, Samuel is highlighting God's sovereignty, that he is the one that is allowing things. But in, Chronicles, this highlights Satan's direct agency because God is allowing it. Both are true, both at once, both are true. So this one is a fairly simple one. Let's get on to the next one.
Moving on to contradiction number 2. Can you see God and live? We've all heard it. No one can see God and live, right? That's what Exodus 33:20 tells us. "Thou canst not see my face, for there shall no man see me and live." Sounds pretty final. But then we look back at Genesis 32 and verse 30, where Jacob wrestles with a divine being and says, "For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved."
I mean, this is an easy one. It's basically the pure presence of God no one can see. But like we can see Jesus, he is God. We can see him. So this is a non-statement. I don't even know how we can not see this. So this one is busted.
Next, we'll look at contradiction number 3. Who killed Goliath? This one might change the way you see a story you've known since you were a child. We all know that David killed Goliath. That's one of the most famous Bible stories of all time. But did he? 1 Samuel 17 and verse 50. It says, "So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him." That's pretty clear, right? But then, 2 Samuel chapter 21 and verse 19, again, the same author, throws us a pretty crazy curveball. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jerogam, how are you supposed to say this? Elhanan, the son of what? Yeah, it's not getting any better.
Jarioregim.
A Bethlehemite slew Goliath the Gittite. Wait, what? Some translations try to fix this by adding the brother of before Goliath's name, but here's the problem. That's not what the Hebrew says.
Actually, it is what the Hebrew says, because when it comes to, the Samuel version, it is, it's a possibility that the translation is, mistranslated, and the original meaning is the brother of. And then we go to Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 25, and because it's written hundreds of years later, they correct it and make sure you know that it is, Lamni, the brother of Goliath. So you can't say that some try and fix it because it doesn't say that. It does say that it is the brother of Goliath, Lamni. It's very clear, and you're just mincing words. No. See, if this is something that's destroying your faith, then we need to correct that. But this isn't a contradiction because it is correct that, like this one, he is the brother of Goliath. It's very simple. You can't kill someone twice. So this one's done.
Let's move forward to contradiction number 4. How did Judas die? Now, here's one that's been debated for centuries. Matthew 27:5 says Judas hanged himself. Acts chapter 1, verse 18, on the other hand, says, "Now this man purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out."
All right, this one is also very easy because both of those things happened. Judas, he bought a field with his money, and I'm going to get back to that in a sec. He purchased it with his own money, as well as he unfortunately hung himself. Time went on. It gets gross. And then he fell and burst open. Both of these stories, both of these things in context are giving you a different story, giving you a different angle. And when it comes to he bought the field, he actually threw the money at the priests, and the priests thought, we don't want this money. We're going to get rid of it. So they bought the land, but they didn't want to. Obviously, they don't want it in their name, so they bought it in Judas's name. So Judas, either way, he bought the farm. He bought the land. Even though the priest bought it with his money in his name and he didn't physically buy it, it was still in his name. And each one of these accounts are just telling you a different story from a different angle and giving you the full picture if you read all of it. This is quite easy, quite simple.
Now, I can already hear the Christians in the comments.
It's common sense. Judas hung himself, and then days later the body became bloated with decay and fell to the ground and burst open.
You're making some pretty big assumptions here. How do you know that Judas hung himself in a field? Matthew doesn't say that. Acts doesn't even hint that Judas was hung.
Because this is how eyewitness accounts work. One witness says this, one witness says that, and what you make of that is you put them two together and you get a full story. It's like with the Titanic. For years, probably 60 years, they thought, some witnesses said the Titanic broke in two, and some said that it only broke in one. It was never broken. It was only in the 80s that was discovered that it was broken into two. But those eyewitnesses that said that it didn't break up, still what they saw was still correct. And when you get two witnesses like the Titanic, What can you ascertain from that? Can you ascertain that it broke in 1 or 2? No. You can ascertain that the boat sank, that the boat did sink, and that actual history happened. And that's with this. So saying that this one didn't say that and that one didn't say this, that's not how eyewitnesses account. So you can't just whitewash it over and say, oh yes, but you can't say this because it didn't say that. It does, because in both accounts, you put them together, you get the full story. End of story.
Because we need to get to contradiction number 5. Where did Jesus' disciples see him first? This one hits at the core of Christianity, the resurrection, and there are a ton of contradictions.
Well, it doesn't, but keep going.
Here, but the most damning of them all, in my opinion, is this one. The Gospels can't agree on when the disciples actually saw Jesus.
Again, we can all agree, but anyway.
Matthew 28, 16 and 17 says they saw him in Galilee. Then the 11 disciples went away into Galilee, into a mountain where Jesus had appointed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Sounds straightforward, right? But then we have Luke 24, which says that they saw him that same evening in Jerusalem. And they rose up the same hour and returned to Jerusalem and found the 11 gathered together. And as they thus spake, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them. So was it days later in Galilee, or was it the same night in Jerusalem?
Okay, you've just twisted a whole heap of stories and made it one. So let me tell you how it goes. Day 1, Jesus was resurrected. They met in a locked room without doubting Thomas. You know the story. 8 days later, they are back in that same locked room in Jerusalem, and Thomas, doubting Thomas, is then presented before, or should I say Jesus is presented before Thomas and says, here's my hands and my feet, you can touch them, etc., etc. Then he says, go to Galilee and meet me there. So they journey to Galilee and they spend, 2 weeks, whatever, in Galilee. And this is where the 500 are gathered, all in one room or one area or whatever. But there are 500 witnesses see Jesus themselves. And I'm sorry, but then and only then do they journey back to Jerusalem, because Jesus says, meet me back there. And that's when they meet in the room again. And then they journey to the mount where he ascends into heaven. This is over a 40-day period. It's not one day. It's a 40-day period. You can't squash 40 days into one day and go, this doesn't fit. You've just twisted everything. And I've got a feeling, I think I know, and again, nothing against you. I don't know your name. But the problem here is you have cracked your faith with contradictions that don't exist. They're easy to unravel, especially this last one. It's just like, if you read, you realize it's over 40 days, but you do need to look at the different, all the Gospels together and get the full picture. It's not even not one of these things is a contradiction, and yet you say this cracked your faith. And I'm sorry, but if there are people out there and you think this is cracking your faith, then please join this channel, because I am going through one a week to go through all the contradictions that people say, because they're not contradictions, but I'm finding they're more like a Bible study, and I'm getting to know God more, and I'm getting to know Jesus deeper. And this is an easy one to crack. It's an easy one to solve. Go do something awesome for God and click on that one, because we're going to do way more, and it's exciting.